Have you ever wondered what the world would look like if Christopher Columbus never reached the Americas in 1492? What if that year was just remembered for the fall of Granada, and the American continents remained a mystery to Europe for another century? Let's explore this fascinating alternate history. Without Columbus's voyage, the powerful Aztec and Incan empires would have continued to flourish. Imagine Tenochtitlan, a bustling city larger than any in Europe at the time, growing even grander. These civilizations, with their complex societies, unique art, and advanced understanding of astronomy, would have continued their own stories, unaware of the existential threat looming across the ocean. Meanwhile, back in Europe, the Game of Thrones would continue, but with a different board. Spain, without the immense wealth from American gold and silver, would have likely remained a significant European power, but not the global empire it became. The famous Spanish Golden Age, which gave us artists like Velázquez and writers like Cervantes, might never have happened in the same way. The economic fuel for that cultural explosion just wouldn't be there. So, who would have filled the power vacuum? Portugal was already a major player. They had been meticulously charting the African coast, seeking a sea route to the spice-rich markets of Asia. Without the distraction of a new world, they might have doubled down on their efforts, potentially becoming the dominant global naval power, controlling trade from Lisbon to Goa and beyond. Their empire would have been one of trade routes and coastal forts, not vast conquered lands. But the lure of the unknown Atlantic wouldn't have just disappeared. The desire for new trade routes, resources, and glory was a powerful force across Europe. Sooner or later, someone else would have sailed west. Maybe it would have been an English explorer like John Cabot, but with greater backing. Or perhaps a French or even a Dutch adventurer would have been the first to make landfall. Let's imagine it was the French who discovered the Americas, maybe 50 or 75 years later. This single change would rewrite the entire cultural and linguistic map of the continents. Instead of Spanish being the dominant language in Latin America, we might hear French from Mexico City to Santiago. North America could have been a patchwork of French and Dutch colonies with very different legal systems and traditions. The 13 English colonies that eventually formed the United States might never have existed. This delay would also have a profound impact on technology and science. The challenges of crossing the Atlantic spurred incredible innovation. Ship designs had to evolve to handle long, dangerous voyages. Cartography, the science of mapmaking, became a state secret and a tool of immense power. Without the urgent need to get to the Americas, the development of these technologies would have been slower. The galleons and caravels that defined the age of sail might have appeared much later. On the other hand, the sheer influx of gold and silver from the Americas actually might have stifled innovation in Spain. When you have a seemingly endless supply of easy money, there's less incentive to invest in developing domestic industries. This is a classic economic trap known as the resource curse, and it's a key reason why the Spanish Empire eventually declined. In our alternate timeline, Spain might have developed a more balanced, internally focused economy, potentially making it more resilient in the long run. Now, let's talk about one of the most significant consequences of 1492, the Columbian Exchange. This was the massive transfer of plants, animals, diseases, and ideas between the Old and New Worlds. If Columbus never sailed, this exchange would be delayed. Think about your dinner plate. Potatoes, tomatoes, corn, chocolate, and vanilla all are native to the Americas. European cuisine would be unrecognizably different without them. The potato, in particular, fueled a massive population boom in Europe, especially in places like Ireland and Germany. A delay in its arrival would mean a different demographic history for the entire continent. But the exchange went both ways, and one of its most devastating components was disease. Smallpox, measles, and influenza were completely unknown in the Americas. When Europeans arrived, these diseases tore through the indigenous populations, who had no immunity. It is estimated that up to 90% of the native population died from disease in the decades following contact. This demographic collapse was a major reason why small bands of conquistadors were able to topple vast empires. In our alternate timeline, with a delayed arrival, would this have been different? Perhaps, a delay of 50 or 100 years might have given indigenous populations more time to consolidate their empires and perhaps even develop some limited immunity through smaller, sporadic contacts with castaways or early explorers. It's a grim thought, but time could have been their most valuable, albeit unwitting, defense. This brings us to another dark chapter, the transatlantic slave trade. The insatiable demand for labor on sugar and tobacco plantations in the Americas fueled one of the largest forced migrations in human history. While slavery existed in many forms around the world, the scale of the transatlantic trade was directly tied to the colonization of the Americas. If colonization was delayed or undertaken by different powers, would the nature of this horrific trade have changed? It's possible. The economic incentives and the specific colonial powers involved would be different, potentially leading to a different, though not necessarily less tragic, outcome. Perhaps the most mind-bending aspect of this alternate history is the continued existence of the Aztec and Incan empires. Without the arrival of Cortés and Pizarro, these civilizations would have kept evolving. Would the Aztecs have reformed their more brutal practices? Would the Incas have resolved their internal succession crises? We could have seen powerful, non-European empires developing on their own terms for another century, creating a completely different global political landscape. The world would not have been split between a dominant Europe and a colonized West. Instead, it might have been a multipolar world with major power centers in Europe, Asia, and the Americas. The rise of the United States is also a direct product of this history. Its foundation by English colonists, its expansion westward, and its eventual emergence as a global superpower are all tied to the specific events that started in 1492. In a world where North America was colonized by the French, or where powerful indigenous confederacies successfully resisted European settlement, the entity we know as the USA might never have come to be. The center of global power could have remained in the Old World, with a very different balance between Europe and Asia. Ultimately, the discovery of the Americas by Europeans was probably inevitable. The forces of exploration, trade, and imperial ambition were too strong. Columbus wasn't a visionary who saw something no one else did. He was a determined captain who got lucky and was in the right place at the right time. Had he failed, another would have succeeded. But the timing and the asterisk of that discovery are what truly matter. A delay of even a few decades could have given the civilizations of the Americas a fighting chance, altered the destinies of European empires, and reshaped the cultural and political map of the entire world. We are left with a powerful question: would a delayed discovery have led to a less violent, more equitable encounter between the old and new worlds? Or was the clash of civilizations and the subsequent dominance of one over the other an unavoidable tragedy? What do you think? Would the world be a better place if Columbus had never set sail? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into what might have been, please give this video a like, subscribe for more thought-provoking content, and don't forget to share it with your friends. Thanks for watching.